Hi, it's me. If you don't know who I am, then look at the channel name. I mean, honestly, if that doesn't sum up my entire deal, then I don't know what else does. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about character design, everyone's favorite thing. You may already know the basics of character design, the whole simple is better and keep a color palette in mind. But I'm going to be digging into some more tiny details that may help a lot. Keep in mind that I'm not a professional, and I don't know what I'm saying 90% of the time. Now that you have a quick heads up, the first topic of discussion is going to be basic shapes. Shapes are everywhere in the world, even if we may not see them. They compose everything from your nose to that old fidget spinner you left in a drawer 3 years ago and hasn't seen the light of day since. Shapes are a huge part of defining a character's personality. Take Pikachu, for instance. We all know and love his cute little face. But what exactly makes him so cute? Well, it's all about shapes and proportions. Take a look at Pikachu's eyes, for example. Look how tiny they are in comparison to his head. And look how close the mouth is to his eyes. Keeping Pikachu's proportions in mind, let's look at another example. Scar from The Lion King, a most formidable fellow. Take a look at the shape of his eyes, head, and mouth. Do you see the amount of space between his mouth and eyes? The long, bony face and the thin, sharp eyes? You don't even have to hear him speak to know that Scar is a very bad dude. Shapes are seen more easily when they are exaggerated, such as the length of Scar's nose or the size of Pikachu's face compared to the rest of his body. Since Pikachu's blank, innocent eyes are so in focus, we immediately see that character as vulnerable and soft, so to speak. This is why we think this is cute, and this isn't. When drawing, many people use three basic shapes to map out proportions and exaggerations: circles, squares, and triangles. Circles are usually used to give a character a warm, friendly feeling. Circles, since they are so, well, rotund, can give a lot of focus on one part of the body. Take babies in animated movies. Their heads are often twice the size of any adults, drawing attention to the facial expressions they often make. Adults, however, have finer motor skills and are able to articulate expression through their motions and body language. Squares are used to create a kind of solid, safe character. When we think of bricks, stones, and such, we can also think of walls and fortresses. Squares are seen as stable, since their sides are both balanced in an appealing way, and even. And finally, triangles. Triangles are used in often dynamic ways to show an athletic, sneaky, cunning, or sharp character. Due to their overall pointiness, triangles are used in ways to give off an edgy vibe, pun intended. Heads may have long, pointy chins, and legs may be long and have splendid calves. Sharp ends are recognized as dangerous and deadly, an understandable position when at the end of a knife or spear. Next, we'll discover the wonderful world of detail and lack thereof. We've all been at a point where we have a character we really love, and we want to keep adding and adding and adding onto their physical personality, such as the things they might wear or keep with them. Think about it like this. When you're looking into a sea of elephants, you would never be able to track down only one and fix your attention on it. There are simply too many elephants. Now, let's imagine those elephants as articles of clothing or items. A character's clothing or items is used to add to the character and give off what kind of character they are. Clothing and items are important to the character because it's what we see them with. It's what they interact with. When too many important things are piled up with one another, it actually lessens the overall importance of the things. See, if a character inherits a necklace from a dead relative, it makes the overall story more interesting, since that is the only representation of the deceased character we get. We see the main character get attached to it, and it becomes a part of them. But if that same character inherited a necklace, an entire collection of books, a glass sword, a Rolls Royce, a magical pencil, and an entire diary of the relative's life's work, there's no sense of desperation in that character's attachment to these objects. That character no longer needs to depend on one thing to remember their relative. They just kind of have everything laid out for them, nice and neat. This can be applied to armor as well. We think that multiple sheaths and chains make someone look very fashionable, but they actually are extremely impractical. All these huge pieces of metal are clunky in battle and not at all efficient. We also need to consider the range of motion in a suit of armor, noting that it is almost or entirely made of metal. Adding more difficulties to a character's movement is a good way to get them killed in a realistic world. Armor is most effective when it fits the character like a glove, sometimes literally. If your character is a certain class of fighter, their armor should reflect on their fighting style or expertise. An archer is bound to have lighter armor than a barbarian in the midst of battle. Make sure that you're only adding things to your design that aids your character. A real warrior would want any upper hand over the enemy. Next, we have backstory, the most important part of any fleshed out character. Backstory gives us insight on who the character is, what beliefs they hold, who are closest to them, and what role they play in the grand scheme of their world. Now, of course, if you enjoy creating little characters that don't really hold any significance, a backstory isn't that big of a deal. But if you want to create a character that follows some kind of story, in a comic, book, animation, or anything else, a character has to have a motive for why they are doing the things they are. Now, the easiest way to do this is to create a list. Name, gender, species, birthday, likes, dislikes, friends, and beliefs. This here is an example of a chart I made for my character, Arrow. You can also add other things if you have a very particular character in mind, like ethnicity, religion, height, weight, habits, and quirks. And don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. As long as it could give a stranger a sense of who your character is, you've written it well. Finally, we have different parts of personality. The one main thing that makes a character is who they are. Are they loud? Soft? Old? Young? Write down any adjectives you think describe your character in a notebook or document. But always remember this. Never write a Mary or Gary stew. What's that, I hear you asking? To put it simply, a Mary or Gary stew is a character that has everything going for them and has no discerning personality traits from anyone else. These characters have incredible strength, super intelligence, unbelievable charisma, and a long, happy life. Every person, no matter how amazing they are, has a quirk. No one is perfect, and show that through your characters. Make them kind and helpful, but secretly very jealous and clingy. Make them feel pain and loss, but have them continue forward in the only ways they can. Everyone feels pain and copes with it differently. How does your character deal with it? Do they pop pills and listen to music? Do they go for a hike and be one with nature? Do they confide in a friend to help them with their troubles? Do they argue with people in the shower with imaginary scenarios? Are they rebellious by day and quiet by night? Or in love with the sound of their own voice? Do they randomly dance in the middle of a supermarket aisle when their favorite song comes on? Or do they secretly collect vintage photos? These are all instances of things we do that make us ourselves. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial on how to create a character. If you liked the video, you know what to do. And if you didn't, I apologize in advance for forcing you to listen to my lisp for several minutes. Well, that's all I've got for you. Bye!